And the setting, I'll just, for the sake of time, the setting is it was a celebration of a friend of George H.W. Bush's that they were throwing a party there in honor. This is after he had lost the re-election, but it was still very much an influential group of people. He was part of a security detail volunteer-wise that he was working. He was up on a grassy knoll. He was up on the knoll there above the house, and he was just working for a securing a perimeter of security around the house while the Bushes were there. In the midst of that, George H.W. Bush is coming out with his granddaughter just on a walk out in the field, and he comes up to Mr. Bridges and tell him what happened for that point. And this is what, 16, 17 years after.
George Herbert came up, walked up to me, and walked up to the field, and I didn't know how to speak to him. But anyways, he walked up to me and he puts his hand out. We shook hands and he said, "I'd like to thank you for being willing to be here on this detail day in light of the threats on his life and so forth." I said, "Well, it's not the first time I've been around your family." He said, "No, where's that? Where was that?" I used to work in Kennebuck Port. Kennebuck Port, he says. And he backed up a step and a half. He pointed right at my name tag and he said, "Calvin Bridges, you arrested my son John." I said, "Yeah, I did, but I wasn't going to say anything." He said, "No." He says, "Listen, you need to know what that meant to him in his life." And we talked about different things about church, about law enforcement and so forth. And he said, "I need to go tell Barbara that you're up here." So he went back down. Pretty soon Barbara comes up, Mrs. Bush. And she comes up, and I don't like to use the word praise, but her praise of all that had happened was great. I mean, she was very thankful, number one, for my service as a police officer, but number two, for the fact that I became a pivotal point in George W.'s life to turn him around, and that was priceless. You see chandeliers in here. To me, that was the crescendo. That was the bright moment of my law enforcement career. To be acknowledged, but to know that I'd done something. It was really good.
And Barbara, that was 1993, them not even knowing what was about to happen in the next few years. But she acknowledged at that point that George W. would not even be where he was, which at that point in time, he was the governor of Texas, that he would never have gotten to that point had it not been for that night of just a law enforcement officer simply off duty, but simply doing his job, regardless of who it was. Now, we jump forward to, that was the high point, we jump forward to the low point, to the year 2000. We all remember that are students of any electoral district. It's the most contested election that there's ever been in the history of the United States of America. And 4 days before the election, none of this was ever brought forward until 4 days before the election, someone locally had tipped off the media, and then the storm started for you. So share that if you would.
A lawyer in Cumberland County who had, for some reason, been digging through records or something, and came up with the arrest record of George W. Bush. And on that day, the Thursday before the election, he handed it to a news reporter for Channel 13 News. And she took it and ran with it. It was a nightmare. It really was a nightmare. I had gone down to my father. I had my younger son with me. And Adam and I were going down to my father's house to do some work on a handicapped bathroom I built for him. And I said to Adam on the way down, just out of conversation, I said, "You know, it would be really bad anybody ever got wind of that arrest and broke it to the press. I don't more than walk through the door of my father's house, I heard my mother on the phone, and she said, basically, she said, Calvin, yes, he's my son, and I think he just walked in the door. She handed me the phone, and this girl, doing her job, really impressed upon me that I had to do the country this great service of telling the story of this horrible man who was a drunk and et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't see it that way. I told her, no, I'm not making a mistake. And she continued that on me until I finally said, look, get a hold of the Republican National Committee. If they wish for me to make a statement, I'll consider making a statement. She did that. And I was called back, and I declined again. I said, no, I'm not going to do this. The Judge Bush was governor. Judge W. was governor at that time, and I got a call from his office in Texas. They knew nothing about this. Governor Bush's followers knew nothing about this arrest. This arrest was put to rest because he paid the fine and he did his time. Well, did his time, paid his dues. So this arrest had no bearing at all. But the person, after I explained what the rest was all about to this person, and sitting there with Governor Bush, he says, I'm going to get a hold of an AP reporter who is with us, so to speak. You can give a statement to him, a short statement. So I conceded to that, and that's what I did. I gave a statement, very short one. But the next day I went to work. I didn't want to be at home because I knew that if I was home, they'd be barraging in the house and after me and so forth. So I went to work. I got to work, and the Boston Globe was already there looking for me. Well, back up a little bit. When I walked back home, I had called my wife, told her what was happening. She said, I'm taking the phone off the hook. So she took the phone off the hook. I traveled the 30 miles home and walked in the door, and she put the phone back on the hook. She no more than hung that up, and the phone rang. It was CBS Good Morning America. They wanted to fly me to New York to be on their show the next morning, and I said, no way. She asked me, she said, don't you know what this could mean to you? And I said, I know exactly what it could mean to me, and I don't want any part of it. I said, this is not right. I went to work the next morning, and the Globe was there. I shunned the lady. I talked to her, but I would not give her a statement. And she finally said to me, she said, let me make you aware of something. She said, you may not want to give a statement, and you may not want your picture taken, but I'll tell you, I'm going to get a picture of you. And it may not be a picture that you want. She says, so you might as well just take the time, we'll take a picture, and I'll be out of here. Well, that's all she got was a picture of me standing beside my plow truck. And she went on her way, but shortly after that, the vehicle pulled up in front of the highway department where I was working. And a few guys got out. One guy's out there, they're setting up this light shield and microphones and everything else, and another guy comes in to the foyer, and my boss introduced me. He told me I'm from Inside Edition, would like to do an exclusive interview with you and have you make a statement. I said, I'm not doing it. He says, we just flew all the way up from New York for this. Don't you should let us at least do an interview. And I I said, you can turn right around and go back in the yard, because there will be no one to be done. And anyway, they finally did, they left, but for days, my family was barraged with this frenzy of the media who wanted the statement, and I would and finally the election passed. It went to sleep.
Until now.
Until now.